on. Let's make it our business. A climate podcast that's about innovators, change makers, and entrepreneurs who are taking actions, creating solutions, and inspiring many. This podcast is supported by US Department of State, created by BBC Media Action, India.
Hi, I'm Sayema. To cool it down, the role of corporates and startups in addressing climate change becomes crucial. Welcome to another episode of Cool It Down, the podcast where we explore innovative solutions to climate change. How can big businesses, often seen as part of the problem, become powerful drivers of change? To answer this, I have a very special guest, Anirban Ghosh from the Mahindra Group. Mahindra has taken significant steps in sustainability, and today we are going to hear about that journey straight from one of the key people behind it. Let's jump right in. Thank you so much for joining us today, Anirban.
Thank you for having me here, Sayema.
Mahindra has taken big steps in sustainability. Can you tell us how this journey began? What inspired Mahindra to start making these changes?
So a little bit of context, Sayema. You know, the ethos of doing the right thing is endemic in the Mahindra Group.
That's right.
This ethos has manifested itself in many ways and has found expression in the word rise. An expression that acknowledges that the business will rise only if its stakeholders prosper.
Lovely.
Now let's look at a flashback. Sometime around 2006-2007, we were asked by some investors if we had a triple bottom line report. At that time, we didn't have one and didn't have much idea about it either.
Right.
On figuring out what it meant, sustainability action felt like the right thing to do and just fitted very well with the Mahindra ethos. So we got started, and after some years of experimenting and piloting various projects, we asked the question, what should our targets be if we wanted to tell ourselves that we are making a meaningful contribution towards solving this problem? And that led to committing to double energy productivity, adopting 100% renewable energy, becoming water positive, zero waste to landfill, adopting science-based targets, and becoming net zero in our operations. So today the business calls it being planet positive.
Lovely. When it comes to cutting down emissions, supply chains can be a major challenge. How did Mahindra work on reducing emissions across its supply chain? Did you face resistance from your partners, and how did you convince them to join in?
You know, the supply chain conversation is nuanced and varies across industries. In the automobile industry, more than 85% of the overall emissions of the company happens when customers are driving the cars produced by the company.
Yeah.
And emissions in the upstream section of the supply chain is less than 10%.
Right.
Unlike the steel industry where upstream emissions are very high. That said, every bit of greenhouse gas emission avoided is good for the planet.
That's right.
We've worked very closely with our suppliers to help them adopt the good practices that we implemented in our factories and help them get the same economic and environmental benefits that we got. It took a lot of capacity building and a lot of persuasion, not very different from what we had to do within our own company. The bulk of upstream supply chain emissions lies in processes by which steel, aluminium, plastics, etc. are made, and also how material and parts are transported. We know today that the journey to make green materials is gathering steam, as is the transition to vehicles powered by clean fuel.
Right.
When these two transitions play out, there will be a significant reduction in upstream emissions. 30 to 50% is a very safe guess.
Very interesting. Very, very interesting. Your projects like waste-free cities and promoting green buildings are just amazing. Could you share a story of one project where you saw a real change in the community or environment?
Let me take a third one, Sayema. It was a project we implemented using CSR funds.
Okay.
a project in partnership with the government of Madhya Pradesh, a state in India. And this project, through the basic work of increasing water availability, ended up increasing per capita income of 50,000 Indians by 3 times.
Wow.
The project lasted 5 to 7 years, and over this 5 to 7 years, this increase in per capita income happened. Many families set up businesses. Women moved from being isolated in their houses to adopting leadership positions in their communities.
Fabulous.
Parents became more confident about fulfilling their children's ambitions, and many dreams became real. It was a truly impactful project, and I had the good fortune to be a part of it. You mentioned food waste free cities and green buildings.
Yeah.
They are an integral part of our businesses. Because, when we made the Mahindra World City a food waste free city, we didn't have to block land for a landfill.
Right.
And the food waste helped us produce compressed natural gas, which could be used to run buses to bring people from the nearest highway to their place of work at the Mahindra World City. So it made a lot of business sense. As did building green buildings.
Right.
Because the places to work are better, the operational costs are lower.
That's right.
And we found that when we build green buildings, we are able to liquidate the inventory much faster than conventional buildings. So these make a lot of business sense, really.
Right. And all this coming out of conviction, a very thorough map of going towards sustainability and going with so much of conviction has been making so much of difference. Anirban, what's one piece of advice you would give to someone, maybe a small business owner or even a student who wants to contribute to sustainability?
If I look at this through the lens of meaningful personal action, the best anyone can do is consume only as much as they need.
Right.
Mahatma Gandhi said that the world has enough for everyone's need, but not enough for everyone's greed. The significance of this statement, made many decades ago, is coming home to roost now.
That's true. That's true.
If we consume only as much as we need, we will automatically reduce the use of natural resources, reduce energy consumption, reduce wastage, reduce pollution, and all 8 billion of us will have a chance to live comfortably on this one earth.
Very well said. As they say, less is better.
Absolutely.
Climate change is a huge challenge and it can often feel a little overwhelming at times. How do you stay motivated to keep pushing for change, especially when the obstacles seem so big? Because I understand every new thing that you introduce, every time we think about, cutting down, there are many sacrifices and there are many compromises that, come in the way. And I'm sure you are also bombarded with a whole lot of, such challenges at the personal, at the professional level. How do you deal with all of that? How do you keep yourself motivated?
There are a few things we realized. One is through all these experiments, we realized that once you get started, you can do much more than what you originally thought was possible towards becoming sustainable.
Right.
So getting started is very critical.
Right.
We also realized that there is a lot you can do which is economically feasible. And therefore scaling them is not a problem at all. So you can do more than what you originally thought.
That's right.
Yeah, and the combination of these two, which is once you get started, you can do much more, and there is lots you can do which is economically feasible. That's what gave us the confidence to scale, move forward, get involved in advocacy, and really ask the question that if all this is possible, then what is it that we can do to accelerate the process? You can start with small things. It's not very onerous, and it really doesn't make life any worse than what we are enjoying now.
Right. Because usually the perception of the corporate houses is that they're out there only to make profits. All that they care is about profits. How do you balance sustainability with business growth at Mahindra? Or, if I may ask, has that ever intersected? Has that ever clashed? Has there been a situation where you had to make compromises with the profit in order to stay sustainable, or vice versa?
You know, every sustainability investment has given us returns more than 24%.
Wow, that's so heartening to hear.
This is way higher than the EBITDA of many businesses and often higher than what the overall business offers. I remember looking at a sample of projects, and we picked up about 2,000 projects and the money that was invested in it. We realized that the amount of money that we invested over a 5-year period, we were saving every year from then on.
Wow. Wow.
So this whole thought that, sustainability is expensive, it is a cost to the business, this thought is not entirely correct.
Right.
Where is it correct? So earlier we were saying that the journey towards making clean materials like steel, aluminium, etc., that journey is just about started.
Yeah.
So there are some technologies like clean hydrogen, like green steel, which when we are trying to implement today are not entirely economically feasible, and you cannot replace all steel with green steel.
That's right.
Because green steel is 75% more expensive. But it's only a matter of time. We said the same thing about solar energy a little while ago. We said the same thing about electric vehicles a little while ago. This is how new technology plays out.
Right.
So there may be something which is expensive today, but over a period of time, it will not remain more expensive. So if we change the conversation to what can we do to ensure that the pace towards, or the time taken to become economically feasible for sustainable technologies, what can we do to bring it down?
Yeah.
Then we are having the right conversation.
Right.
To expect that all new technologies will be cheap from day one is not a fair expectation.
As is happens with when you start your business, you do know that for a certain period of time, it is only going to be about the cost, and only after a while the profits would, start trickling in. Anirban, last question. There are many budding entrepreneurs who will be tuned in, who will be listening to you, and who would want to know that what is it that they can specially, focus on, that the bigger corporate groups are finding bottlenecks or, speed breakers as far as achieving the goal of sustainability is concerned. So what are the opportunities out there for them?
This is probably the biggest opportunity in this century, trying to solve for climate change.
Yeah.
Because everything we do, we will want to continue doing, but in a way in which we are not having a negative impact on the planet.
Right.
You can only do that if you bring in new products, new materials, new processes, and every one of them is a new business opportunity. Especially the area of circular economy. This business of, rethinking products, rethinking processes, and ensuring that material gets used longer and does not go to the landfill or is not discarded.
Right.
Is a way of thinking that will trigger all kinds of new technologies, and no better place for young entrepreneurs, for young startups to dabble in this space, because this is where value will get created tomorrow. And this is why all of us keep saying that this is probably the biggest business opportunity that has come to us in the form of tackling climate change.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Anirban, for sharing your insights and experiences with us today. It's clear that corporate action can have a powerful impact, and the work Mahindra is doing shows that businesses can indeed lead the way in sustainability. For everyone tuned in, remember, every action counts, whether we are running a business or just looking for ways to be more eco-conscious in our daily lives. Change starts with the first step. Let's keep the conversation going and let's eventually cool it down. Thank you so much for joining us today, Anirban.
Thank you, Sayema. Pleasure being here.
All right, before we hear a lot more exciting stuff,
Dear listeners, you have a role to play in cooling it down. Please share your thoughts and suggestions about this podcast with just a mail away. Cool it down at in.bbcmediaaction.org or simply click the link in the descriptor of this episode. After all, we got to hashtag cool it down.
joining us on the podcast now is somebody very special. Swati is a seasoned leader in sustainable development with extensive experience driving ADP's global programs in India and livelihood and education initiatives across the Asia-Pacific region. Her expertise spans the consulting cycle from strategy development and implementation to senior leadership relationship management and digital transformation. Swati has spearheaded complex, high-impact initiatives including enabling climate finance for MSMEs, fostering growth-stage climate tech startups in India and the UK, and crafting policy recommendations to tackle global plastic pollution. Through her professional engagements, Swati has enabled small and medium enterprises to accelerate their green transition and has fostered growth for climate tech startups by building cross-border entrepreneurial networks and investment opportunities. In a recent landmark initiative, Swati conducted an in-depth analysis of blue and green economy sectors in the Philippines to identify employment opportunities for out-of-school youth. Her work has informed policy decisions, strengthened ecosystems, and supported capacity building for organizations advancing youth employability. Swati's expertise lies in harnessing strategic partnerships and innovative approaches to create inclusive and sustainable solutions for the challenges of today's world. Thank you so much, Swati, for joining us today.
Thank you, Sayema, for having me here. Thank you so much.
The rise of green jobs, especially across green transportation and construction, is exciting. How can young professionals prepare themselves for these roles? And do you have an inspiring example of someone whose life changed because of green jobs?
Thank you, Sayema. And I think you have just put across a bunch of really great questions to start with. And let us just first understand the green jobs better and then, look at the approach for the youth specifically to prepare themselves for this. Green jobs are essentially roles that directly or indirectly contribute to building a sustainable economy, environmentally, socially, and of course, economically as well. These jobs span multiple sectors. There's a lot of room to explore, Saima, when I talk about this, whether it's decarbonizing buildings, advancing low carbon transportation, or even driving renewable, energy initiatives. There are massive opportunities, absolutely.
Wow.
While no one has the exact, I would say, measure of the opportunity, estimates suggest that around 30 million green jobs will be created across Asia Pacific by 2030.
Wow.
So hence, you understand, yeah, of course, it becomes super critical for the youth to sort of prepare for these opportunities. Of course, coming back to the question about how there are certain approach, and I would call it like a three-pronged kind of an approach that can really help as a building block to our youth, basically. One is to pursue skill development and education, join training programs, pursue academic coursework, acquire as much technical know-how for these jobs, basically, because they are highly skilled jobs.
Right.
I won't say highly skilled, but there are skills required in particular domains, basically. Two, I would say gaining hands-on experience. Nothing can beat that. Pursuing sort of internship, on-the-job trainings are hugely helpful. And lastly, I would say network and collaboration. Networks always win. definitely engaging with, people, organization who works in the green domain, definitely going to help. While all of this that I have spoken, which I call the three building blocks, may sound traditional, and also very familiar, but the significant change lies in acquiring and adopting the attitude, basically, of being mindful, about the environment as you perform these tasks. So that's become super, super, helpful.
This sounds amazing. I'm sure anyone who's tuned in would be curious to learn from you some resources as they look forward to preparing themselves for these jobs. Can you suggest some references to start with?
Of course, and there are plenty of public and private, I would say, initiatives and the programs to enable the youth. Let me share a few examples that we have in the ecosystem for a quick reference here. I will start with the initiative in NSDC, which support numerous training providers basically,
Okay.
and sector skill council, and especially under skill council for green jobs, which is very, very, focused in the same scenario. Something similarly is also being done by NABARD, which runs a number of training programs related to sustainable agriculture and also rural green jobs. As we also understand, looking at India geography, the larger number of rural population. So that looks into that perspective as well.
Right.
I can also speak about the One M One B Green Skill Academy. It's an amazing collaboration with AICTE and
Interesting.
also targets to provide training and skills 200,000 youth in the green economy. So many corporates, I would say, are offering a lot of sustainable, development leadership programs, which combine your critical sort of skill set, industry exposure with leadership development. Trust me, Saima, and of course the listeners here, this is not even the tip of the iceberg. There are plenty, plenty more programs. So go out and find that one that suits you the best.
This is so encouraging and so much of helpful information out there. Also, I understand you work very closely in this domain, and hence I'm curious if you've also had the chance to meet someone who's already exploring this kind of a green pathway to livelihood.
Oh, many, of course. And I can't point out to just an individual stories because there are so many of them. But pursuing green jobs is, trust me, is a rage among right now among the youth these days. So many of them today have upskilled themselves and joined the workforce in the green and blue sector, I would also say. And when you speak to them, the youth, they just don't talk about the many job opportunities in the industry as wide as green transportation and all the sectors that I spoke about, but also they feel so proud about, being very sort of expressive about the contentment that they feel, working in a job which has so much of positive,
Wonderful.
environmental impact. Yeah, of course. And I often hear about how good they feel about not just earning a livelihood for their family, but also becoming very active change makers in the entire process.
Wow.
I can really tell you, Saima, I work myself in the impact space, and this is a feeling of contentment I too derive from my role, and this is definitely
And
priceless.
I can hear that in your tone, the passion, the contentment, the conviction. All of this is so infectious. Swati, we know consumers can drive change, but how can companies guide people to make greener choices? Do you have an example or examples where a corporate initiative helped shift consumer behavior?
Definitely. Saima, again, modern day consumer have incredible power to drive change. And why I'm saying that? Because of the youth.
Right.
Today's consumer, especially young generation, are increasingly driven by the values, prioritizing the sustainable and ethical practices. According to an Accenture study that we did, 5 in 6 consumer, which is so very high, are now making, sustainable shopping choices, opting for something which is reusable,
Wow.
recyclable, and more important, it is also durable. So back to your question on how companies can really guide consumers, towards sort of making greener choices, I would say. Let's again look at some of the approaches, as I would say, from a consultant hat that I wear. One is transparency and awareness. Companies really have to empower consumers by providing, sort of clear, accessible information about the environmental impact of the purchases that people are making,
I
especially
see.
the youth. For example, I'll give you an example here. One major FMCG player has enabled buyers with a digital carbon tracker footprint tracker, I would say, which easily, helps to understand the environmental impact of the product, of the purchase, basically.
Wow.
The point that I'm trying to drive here is that brands really need to simplify the decision-making process at the end of the day.
That's right.
They
Yeah.
have to reduce the burden of choice and kind of help consumers make informed and greener choices. So that's one. Transparency and awareness is absolutely important. Second, I would say that incentivizing greener choices. So again, I'll refer back to one of our study, Accenture in 2023, we did on green consumption survey. Consumer expect eco-friendly options to
Right.
be more affordable, of higher quality, and of course safe to use, right? Now this all ties back to a concept that we call as eco essential innovation, which focuses on making green products simple, durable, and accessible.
Right.
I'll give you an example here because I think example is always very helpful.
Yeah.
It's an electric vehicle market that we can talk about. We all are aware of it, where manufacturers have not only amplified the message about the government subsidies and the tax rebates, but also they have partnered with finance companies to roll out attractive sort of financing options.
Awesome.
Some have even taken the extra effort uh, you know, of setting up EV charging stations and have offered discounts on installation of home, sort of chargers. So making it really easier for consumer to adopt EVs. So that's
Wow.
second. And lastly, I would say the third one is nudging through design. Small design changes have a big impact. And that ties back again to the behavioral economics, which tells us that adjusting how products are presented, that's where I would just underline how products are presented can influence consumer behavior. So let me take an example here from our daily life, basically, let's say food delivery. So food delivery apps, I'm sure we all do that. They have taken multiple steps and initiative to nudge climate consciousness. They have made the delivery of cutlery a special request, right? They offer discounts if you club the delivery together.
That's right.
So also at times highlighting the local producers being used by the restaurant. So similarly, I mean, there are many examples like airlines. Some of the airlines are really providing estimates of CO2 emissions, when you're taking a flight, right?
Yeah.
So it all helps to make a greener choice. So there are so many more examples, but yeah, I hope
Yeah, but
this
I mean,
helps.
it's been wonderful. I mean, how wonderfully and elaborately and lucidly you have taken through the process, given examples. I must say that, it's been really, really enlightening. If you had to leave young listeners with one action they can take, Swati, what would it be? And how can they get involved in this corporate ecosystem of climate action?
Amazing question. And if you give me a choice to, uh, give one takeaway, I would say start small, but start fast,
Wow.
So, every individual actions, whether it is how the youth approach their career or their consumption habits or, any causes that they advocate, basically, can set off a ripple effect that leads to sort of real change. As
Interesting.
young professionals, of course, you have the power to shape the future. This statement is really powerful, and you don't have to wait for the perfect moment to get involved, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So the tools, resources, opportunities to make the impact are already within the reach. That's what I can say, Saima. And to dive into the corporate climate action ecosystem,
Yeah.
what I would recommend is basically, of course, I spoke about this, pursuing internship, fellowship, with organization that aligns with the youth sustainability goals, basically. These
Right.
programs really give the chance to work on some real world challenges and contribute to the impactful projects. Second, I would say again, upskill, and take up green jobs, right? Upskilling to areas like ESG, renewable energies, sustainable business practices, step into in-demand roles basically in the field
Right.
of clean energy, circular economy, all of that. And lastly, I would say the third part of this would be advocacy and volunteering basically. Volunteering with groups that focus on environmental impact, restoration, or sustainability. These experiences not only can, build your network, but also will give you a deeper understanding of the issues and the solutions firsthand.
Right.
I really believe, Sama, that by investing in education, connecting with like-minded people and organization, and of course taking purposeful steps in your personal as well as your professional life, one can really contribute to a larger movement of climate action.
Right.
And I can just say, to just sum up this question of yours is that every choice counts, right? Be it reducing your carbon footprint, supporting ethical practices, or advocating for sustainable policies.
That's right.
So I think the change we want to see in the world start within us and right now.
I think that's the perfect parting shot. And I think somebody who has been contributing so much and is driven, passionate, with a lot of conviction, you have truly guided us in a way that one can actually make this a mission to cool it down. Thank you so much, Swati, for joining us today in this episode. The episode is like a crash course if you really want to make a difference.
Thank you, Sayema, for having me. And thank you if I've been able to contribute a little. But yeah, thank you so much.
Surely, thank you so much. And now, here is the cherry on the cake to inspire, provoke the entrepreneur in you. The dynamic Shweta Dalmia, a climerpreneur and co-founder of Bharat Climate Startups, an organization driving climate entrepreneurship in India, joins us. Let's learn how businesses and innovative minds can make a real difference to our planet. Welcome to Cool It Down, Shweta.
Thank you, Sayema. Thank you so much for having me here. Super excited to be speaking with you.
Same here. Shweta, you work closely with climate-focused entrepreneurs. Could you walk us through how you identify a promising business idea, help develop it, and ensure it becomes a workable solution?
I think an idea, like in the climate space, I always believe that we need to work on a lot of different aspects. So it's not just, say, air, it's not just water, it's everywhere where we need to work. And I always feel that climate action in that way is transdisciplinary. So any good solution should, have a positive impact in terms of, say, if I'm talking about a water solution.
Right.
Is it maybe cleaning the water body? Is it impacting the lives of people around it? Is it empowering the people? So what kind of impact that particular solution is delivering? Today, there are so many solutions out there which are just existing because they are sustainable. But is there a use case available to it? If there is no use case available to it, then your solution might be sustainable, might be eco-friendly, but there is no use to it.
Right.
So any good solution needs to impact people, it needs to empower people, plus it needs to, impact the environment positively. So for example, one of my favorite startups is a startup named Watson, which makes, it's basically an organization which is making natural water purifiers. And, there are areas in India where we have got arsenic and fluoride in water.
Yeah.
And these people cannot afford the regular purifiers. So Watson came up with a solution where these natural water purifiers do not require any electricity. And today, the people who are using these purifiers are the ones who are based out of Assam, who are based out of across India. Even, on our borders, our soldiers are using these purifiers.
Wow, fantastic.
So there was a story that the founder told me that once there was flood in Assam, and all that material available in the house was flowing in the water in the flood, and the family, what they did was they tied that water purifier at the top of their house. And someone asked that why did you do that? That family said that I can live with my stuff going into the water, but I cannot live without the water purifier, because where would I get clean water? And that's the impact of that solution. So today, when they are sending their, say, solution into Bengal, the guide is in Bengali. When they're doing it in Punjab, the test guide is in Punjabi. So every person is empowered to even install that simplest of the purifier. And that's my all-time favorite story to tell. So these are the kind of solutions that we really need to build. And with what we do, we have like a very intensive scale on which we identify a solution. Okay, is it impacting lives? Is the solution scalable?
Right.
And then we, feature that story. And now in the coming months, we're also launching our own VC fund
Right.
where we would be helping these solutions, these startups raise money and also build strategic partnerships across the country.
That sounds fantastic, and I hear you. I mean, with sustainability, utility is as important,
Yes.
and we need to keep assessing that. Building a sustainable business solution means working with different partners. Who are some of the key players, like, corporates, educational institutions, or government bodies? Who are those key players that young entrepreneurs need to collaborate with, Shweta, and how do you help them navigate these partnerships?
I think, Saima, everybody, we cannot leave anyone behind.
Right.
Like, for example, if today talk about government is coming up with so many different initiatives. So, for example, in Assam itself, Startup Nest is working extremely well. In Hyderabad, just a few weeks ago, I was there. There's an organization called T-Works. So, they are again doing exemplary well when it comes to doing in the climate space. So, today, every organization is doing in their best regard, like even in the research labs today.
Right.
So, they're also finding ways to commercialize their solutions. So, for example, CSIR, Indian Institute of Petroleum, based out of Dehradun, the former director there, Dr. Anjan Ray. So, he was so keen that all the solutions that come out of that particular institutions need to actually reach the industry. So, today, the Sustainable Aviation Fuel developed by India came out from CSIR IIP.
Right.
And they have also worked upon biodiesel. That biodiesel today, that particular, like, how do you make biodiesel out of cooking oil? And that particular solution has been given to people living in villages, and today there are buses running on that particular biodiesel.
Yeah.
So I feel that it's not just any one organization. We need to collaborate across depending upon what your solution is. So
Right.
for example, there are certain solutions, like for example the lake. We recently did a story on a particular startup that actually cleans water bodies. So solutions like this, they need to collaborate very closely with the government, the local state governments, and so it depends upon what your solution is, and we really need to collaborate to scale these solutions. And for us, because today I'm speaking with a lot of people, like from the corporates, from the investor side, from the startup side, we help people build those partnerships.
Right.
So, just making them friendly introductions, or maybe finding ways where their solutions can be installed. Like even with corporates, corporates today are looking for solutions. Like, for example, there's this one startup. What they do is they use actually algae to clean water.
Okay.
And now what they've done, they've installed this solution into India's biggest food processing unit.
Okay.
So there they are using that algae to clean water, and out of that a microalgal biomass is generated.
Wow.
Because it is India's biggest food unit. That same microalgal biomass is used into their fields to have a better yield for, say, tomatoes, and then that tomatoes are again used to make ketchup or whatever product that particular company is making.
Wow, that's
in that way, that
fantastic.
company is not releasing any dirty water into the ocean, and their yield also gets increased. So the idea here is that corporates today are also looking forward to collaborate with organizations.
Right.
Similarly, another organization in India, Log9, which is India's biggest and the most celebrated EV startups, not a startup now. So today they have opened up their lab for many other startups in the EV space to come and do R&D.
Fantastic.
They're also helping these startups. So I think that's the kind of collaboration we need to have to build these solutions.
Exactly. I think, the moment we realize that as a society, as a world, as a planet, there is interdependence amongst us, I think collaboration is going to be the natural way forward. In the sea of ideas that we see today, Shweta, which entrepreneurial solution, according to you, has made the biggest impact on addressing the climate crisis recently?
There is no one particular solution, because climate crisis today is not happening because of any one thing.
Exactly.
Like we can talk about agriculture. Like, so just a few days ago, I was speaking on a conference on impact of climate change on food systems. But on one side where you can talk about building all these varieties that give you better yield, but there are sides where you have to improve air, water, soil.
Right.
So similarly, in the climate space, you cannot say that this particular startup has the biggest impact. So I believe that we again, like for example, just a few months ago, we were in Sundarbans, and in Sundarbans there was this organization called Lok Mata Rani Rashtrimani Mission. So what happens there is now, because today, like we know, mangroves are being cut down,
Yeah.
and that's why tigers are coming out of the village. So when
Exactly.
these villagers go into these, forests for getting their basic needs, tigers attack, and there are, incidents happening. So this particular organization, just to prevent people from going into the forest, they today have turned farmers and people in Sundarbans into field scientists,
Wow.
where they help them identify so many different strains of rice variants, which can be grown in Sundarbans, helping them do sustainable poultry
Wow.
and many other things. So even like how do you make cook stoves, like sustainable cook stoves? How do you do that? So many different things happening over there, like nutrition gardens being built, magic soil, and so many things happening. So I believe it's not one solution. It's all about that what that particular local space or local geography in India requires. We need to move more towards localized solutions
Right.
and
Right.
identify the local challenges that people in that particular space are facing, and then build solutions that can impact that particular, people living there.
And it's fascinating that, the bull's eye is the same for everyone, that we've got to cool it down somehow. We've
Yes.
got to find alternative solutions and different ideas and different minds approaching the same. They just make it into a sea of ideas and we can learn so much from each, and that's exactly what's happening. But Shweta, everything that people are doing, they're thinking about it, they're trying to implement. Some ideas succeed, some ideas fail. What are some of the challenges you see in this space? And if there are corporates, listening in right now, what can they do? How can they contribute to help solve these issues?
I think what I have seen in the climate space particularly is that the fight to profitability is the biggest challenge that these startups today are facing. And like there are some kind of solutions, like for example, hardware solutions. So these solutions have a bigger incubation time. So like it takes multiple trials to build those solutions. So in that initial stage, do we have enough people who are going to trust these people, who are going to trust these entrepreneurs, these organizations, and
Right.
invest?
Yeah.
So I feel that if any corporate or even any governmental organization is listening to this right now, we need to support these organizations, these people, as much as
Right.
we can. Because unless and until we put in money into R&D, we put in money into scaling these solutions,
Right.
we won't be able to see the impact. And secondly, I also feel that even across India, like because today we are actually going to the grassroots to see the kind of solutions that are being built.
Right.
We have got so many amazing solutions. It's just that we don't know about it. So how do we say take a solution from Manipur to a distant place in Jammu Kashmir?
Exactly.
Do we have a platform that people can collaborate? Someone might have had an alternative for plastic,
Yeah.
but then we have someone who has a supply chain figured out.
Right.
How can these two people collaborate across different geographies and scale these things? So I believe that kind of system is lacking, and if any corporate could do that, any government organization could do that, that could be great.
Yeah.
But again, like I'm very hopeful because today's systems are evolving. We have so many organizations, helping people collaborate, helping people connect. So this would be solved, but this is a challenge right now.
Right. Shweta, we always encourage people to find a little bit of direction when they listen to our conversation. And there are individuals who are passionate about our planet. There are entrepreneurs who are listening in thinking, is there an opportunity for me to turn it into a business idea, an investor or supporter? What advice would you give them to get started? Let's start with an individual. What can I do to cool it down?
I think there are different things. Like it depends upon, like, do you actually want to make a career in the space? If you want to make a career, then there are so many different kinds of jobs available today. We have so many startups with so many different kinds of openings. We also have corporates who are looking for people with green skills, so you can skill yourself. We have organizations like Terra Do who are actually helping, individuals who are say 25, 26, 28 to actually skill themselves and do the transition into their corporate world as well.
Superb.
Similarly, if you are someone who want to maybe, looking forward to an idea to start into the space, I would strongly recommend that firstly figure out which problem do you closely feel connected with?
Right.
Because the space is difficult. It's
And
going
it's
to
vast.
take every. It is vast, and like Saima, it requires actual resilience and actual courage to do when
Right.
thousands of people around you would say, hey, this will not work. Hey, this is not profitable. You're wasting your life.
Yeah.
In that situation, only and only if you're connected with the cause, only then you'll be able to move forward. So find a problem, find a cause that you relate with,
Right.
and then start figuring out that, hey, are there another organizations who are targeting this? Are there any other solutions within India, outside India? Connect with these people, talk with these people, because the more you talk, the more you see things on ground. It will give you an idea, hey, why is it working, why is it not working? So for example, we started up with a sustainable fashion marketplace and we closed that down within a year. It didn't work because, and the mistake we did was we didn't do enough market research on that.
Right.
I just thought, hey, that's a brilliant idea to get all these local brands on one platform and start selling, but it didn't work in terms of numbers. So do the market research, talk to people, and that's the idea. I think, yeah, that's the individual game. Yeah.
What about entrepreneurs? You think they have a promising future in this?
Definitely, because we need solutions, like be it energy, be it any space. Like, like there's this one entrepreneur. So what he did was he built a technology under the name of Cowonomics technology.
Okay.
And that technology today is patented. So he's building partnerships across with different organizations.
Wow.
So what he does basically is, like, for example, one of his projects is in Delhi. There's an area called Loni. And that particular lake, it had like this thick garbage patch.
Okay.
And on that garbage patch, people used to walk into that particular water body. We had dead bodies of animals floating into that water body. People living around that space, they had so many vector-borne diseases. The water that used to come out of their taps was actually brown water. And I can say that because I have visited the place myself to see the impact his solution is having today. And with his technology, which is basically in that water body, they do some medicine dosing with their patented technology. And today, that water body is clean. The water body has fishes, it has birds, and there's a small agricultural land just next to the water body. That same water is going there. People around that space now, they come there, sit, they say our kids are no more, they do not have diseases. We have these small swings that are placed around that water body for children to come and enjoy in the evenings.
Right.
So that's the kind of impact, that's the kind of future our climate solutions today have. So I believe opportunity is there. It's just on how you execute. Everything is execution and building right partnerships.
Right. So I think, going into the new year, actually beginning it, we need to remind ourselves we're already late in joining the mission of sustainability, and we've got to get associated with one of the areas that we feel connected with, as Shweta puts it, and then get started with adequate preparation. It takes a lot of organized efforts, but once we get there, it's bound to be successful. Shweta, it's been incredible hearing your insights. Thank you for shedding light on how innovation and collaboration can drive climate action. I understand every idea counts and every step matters in the fight against climate change. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Sayema, for doing that. Thank you so much for bringing so many individuals across, the world onto this podcast. Like, it's been a pleasure listening to it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
There's always something you can do to cool it down. Every individual action can contribute to climate change solutions, be it at a corporate or organization level or as entrepreneurs' innovation to fight against climate change. Pick your action and keep cooling it down. Signing off from yet another episode is your host, Sayema, leaving you with loads of ideas and hopefully things to do today, but with a promise to be back with many more climate connections, business ideas, and takeaways to cool it down. Make sure you check back soon.
Cool it down. Let's make it our business.